Here is a list of all the individual kings of Rome, starting off with Romulus. From 753 till 716 BC. Son of the Vestal Virgin Rhea Silvia, ostensibly by the god Mars, the legendary Romulus was Rome's founder and first king, after he and his twin brother Remus had deposed King Amulius of Alba and reinstated the king's brother and their grandfather Numitor to the throne. They decided to build a city in the area where they had been abandoned as infants. After killing Remus in a dispute, Romulus began building the city on the Palatine hill. His work began with fortifications. He permitted men of all classes to come to Rome as citizens, including slaves and freemen without distinction. He is credited with establishing the city's religious, legal, and political institutions. The kingdom was established by unanimous acclaim with him at the helm when Romulus called the citizenry to a council for the purposes of determining their government. Romulus established the Senate as an advisory council with the appointment of 100 of the most noble men in the community. These men he called patres, from pater, father, the head, and their descendants became the patricians. To project command, he surrounded himself with attendants, in particular the 12 lictors. He created 3 divisions of horsemen, or equites, called centuries, ramnes Romans, tities after the Sabine king, and luceres, Etruscans. He also divided the populace into 30 curiae, named after 30 of the Sabine women who had intervened to end the war between Romulus and Tatius. The curiae formed the voting units in the popular assemblies, the comitia curiata. Romulus was behind one of the most notorious acts in Roman history, the incident commonly known as the assault of the Sabine women. To provide his citizens with wives, Romulus invited the neighboring tribes to a festival in Rome where the Romans committed a mass abduction of young women from among the attendees. The accounts vary from 30 to 683 women taken, a significant number for a population of 3,000 Latins, and presumably for the Sabines as well. War broke out when Romulus refused to return the captives. After the Sabines made 3 unsuccessful attempts to invade the hill settlements of Rome, the women themselves intervened during the Battle of the Lacus Curtius to end the war. The 2 peoples were united in a joint kingdom, with Romulus and the Sabine king Titus Tatius sharing the throne. In addition to the war with the Sabines, Romulus waged war with the Fidenates and Veientes and others. He reigned for 37 years. According to legend, he vanished at age 54, while reviewing his troops on the Campus Martius. He was reported to have been taken up to Mount Olympus in a whirlwind and made a god. After initial acceptance by the public, rumors and suspicions of foul play by the patricians began to grow. In particular, some thought that members of the nobility had murdered him, dismembered his body, and buried the pieces on their land. These were set aside after an esteemed nobleman testified that Romulus had come to him in a vision and told him that he was the god Quirinus. He became not only one of the 3 major gods of Rome, but the very likeness of the city itself. A replica of Romulus's hut was maintained in the center of Rome until the end of the Roman Empire. Next up we have Numa Pompilius from 715 to 672 BC. After Romulus died, there was an interregnum for 1 year, during which 10 men chosen from the Senate governed Rome as successive interreges. Under popular pressure, the Senate finally chose the Sabine Numa Pompilius to succeed Romulus on account of his reputation for justice and piety. The choice was accepted by the curate assembly. Numa's reign was marked by peace and religious reform. He constructed a new temple to Janus, and after establishing peace with Rome's neighbors, closed the doors of the temple to indicate a state of peace. They remained closed for the rest of his reign. He established the Vestal Virgins at Rome, as well as the Salii and the Flamines for Jupiter, Mars, and Quirinus. He also established the office and duties of Pontifex Maximus. Numa reigned for 43 years. He reformed the Roman calendar by adjusting it for the solar and lunar year, as well as by adding the months of January and February to bring the total number of months to 12. Next we have Tullus Hostilius, from 672 to 640 BC. Tullus Hostilius was as warlike as Romulus had been, completely unlike Numa, as he lacked any respect for the gods. Tullus waged war against Alba Longa, Fidenae, and Veii, and the Sabines. During Tullus's reign, the city of Alba Longa was completely destroyed, and he himself integrated its population into Rome. Tullus is attributed with constructing a new home for the Senate, the Curia Hostilia, which survived for 562 years after his death. According to Livy, Tullus neglected the worship of the gods until, towards the end of his reign, he fell ill and became superstitious. However, when Tullus called upon Jupiter and begged assistance, Jupiter responded with a bolt of lightning that burned the king and his house to ashes. His reign lasted for 32 years. Next, Ancus Marcius, from 640 to 616 BC. Following the mysterious death of Tullus, the Romans elected a peaceful and religious king in his place, Numa's grandson, Ancus Marcius. Much like his grandfather, Ancus did little to expand the borders of Rome, and only fought wars to defend the territory. He also built Rome's first prison on the Capitoline Hill. He further fortified the Janiculum Hill on the western bank and built the first bridge across the Tiber River. He also founded the port of Ostia Antica on the Tyrrhenian Sea and established Rome's first salt works, as well as the city's first aqueduct. Rome grew as Ancus used diplomacy to peacefully unite smaller surrounding cities into alliance with Rome. Thus, he completed the conquest of the Latins and relocated them to the Aventine Hill, thus forming the plebeian class of Romans. He died a natural death like his grandfather after 25 years as king, marking the end of Rome's Latin Sabine kings. Next, Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, from 616 to 578 BC. Lucius was the fifth king of Rome and the first of Etruscan birth. After immigration to Rome, he gained favor with Ancus, who later adopted him as a son. Upon ascending the throne, he waged wars against the Sabines and Etruscans, doubling the size of Rome and bringing great treasures to the city. To accommodate the influx of population, the Aventine and Celian hills were populated. One of his first reforms was to add 100 new members to the Senate from the conquered Etruscan tribes, bringing the total number of senators to 200. He used the treasures Rome had acquired from the conquests to build great monuments for Rome. Among these were Rome's great sewer systems, the Cloaca Maxima, which he used to drain the swamp-like area between the 7 hills of Rome. In its place, he began construction on the Roman Forum. He also founded the Roman Games. Priscus initiated great building projects, including the city's first bridge, the Pons Sublicius. The most famous is the Circus Maximus, a giant stadium for chariot races. After that, he started the building of the temple fortress to the god Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill. However, before it was completed, he was killed by a son of Ancus Marcius after 38 years as king. His reign is best remembered for introducing the Roman symbols of military and civil offices, and the Roman triumph, being the first Roman to celebrate one. Next, Servius Tullius, from 578 to 534 BC. Priscus was succeeded by his son-in-law Servius Tullius, Rome's second king of Etruscan birth, and the son of a slave. Like his father-in-law, Servius fought successful wars against the Etruscans. He used the booty to build the first wall all around the 7 hills of Rome, the Pomerium. He also reorganized the army. Servius Tullius instituted a new constitution, further developing the citizen classes. He instituted Rome's first census, which divided the population into 5 economic classes, and formed the Centuriate Assembly. He used the census to divide the population into 4 urban tribes based on location, thus establishing the Tribal Assembly. He also oversaw the construction of the Temple of Diana on the Aventine Hill. Servius's reforms made a big change in Roman life. Voting rights based on socioeconomic status favoring elites. However, over time, Servius increasingly favored the poor in order to gain support from plebeians, often at the expense of patricians. After a 44-year reign, he was killed in a conspiracy by his daughter Tullia and her husband, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus. And the last king, Tarquinius Superbus, from 534 to 509 BC. The 7th and final king of Rome was Lucius Tarquinius Superbus. He was the son of Priscus and the son-in-law of Servius, whom he and his wife had killed. Tarquinius waged a number of wars against Rome's neighbors, including against the Volsci, the Gabii, and the Rutuli. He also secured Rome's position as head of the Latin cities. He also engaged in a series of public works, notably the completion of the Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus and works on the Cloaca Maxima and the Circus Maximus. However, Tarquin's reign is remembered for his use of violence and intimidation to control Rome and his disrespect for Roman custom and the Roman Senate. Tensions came to a head when the king's son, Sextus Tarquinius, assaulted Lucretia, wife and daughter to powerful Roman nobles. Lucretia told her relatives about the attack and committed suicide to avoid the dishonor of the episode. 4 men, led by Lucius Junius Brutus, and including Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus, Publius Valerius Publicola, and Spurius Lucretius Tricipitinus, incited a revolution that deposed and expelled Tarquinius and his family from Rome in 509 BC. Tarquin was viewed so negatively that the word for king, rex, held a negative connotation in the Latin language until the fall of the Roman Empire. Lucius Junius Brutus and Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus became Rome's first consuls, marking the beginning of the Roman Republic. This new government would survive for the next 500 years, until the rise of Julius Caesar and Augustus, and would cover a period during which Rome's authority and area of control extended to cover vast areas of Europe, North Africa, and West Asia. He ruled for 25 years.